Hello and welcome to this digital photo video tutorial. I'm Phil Hall and I'm going to be showing you this great split raw mono conversion that's perfect for getting the best out of your raw files. With a single raw file, we'll carry out two separate raw mono conversions, one for the foreground and then one for the sky, before blending them together in Photoshop to produce a stunning mono shot that would be hard to achieve normally. We're going to be using the HSL grayscale tab in the raw converter to carry out our black and white conversion, so with the exception of a couple of localized adjustments in Photoshop, pretty much everything else is done within the raw converter. So, if you'd like to open up loire.dng, we can crack on with this technique. I'm just going to close down the final image. This is what we're going to achieve at the end of our tutorial, and this is what our start image looks like. Okay, I'm just going to open up the raw file. It's loire.dng. And this will automatically launch Photoshop's raw converter. Okay, this first conversion is solely going to concentrate on the foreground. We're not going to worry about how the sky looks in this conversion. We're just concentrating on what's going on up the front here. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is, with the basic tab, is just crank the exposure up just a touch. So I'm just going to increase it to round about plus 0.80. There we go. Let's just lighten that up a bit. If I click back, you'll notice we've lost detail in the sky, but I'm not worried about that. That's what I'm going to do in my second raw conversion. Okay, what I'm going to do before I start playing around with these other sliders is just convert the image first off to black and white. And I can do that by clicking on the HSL grayscale tab, the fourth one along there, and then hitting convert to grayscale. Right, what's happened here is Photoshop has automatically keyed in what I think is the sort of the best fit for our image, but we want to do that ourselves and sort of control that ourselves. So I'm going to hit default here. Everything will revert to 0. And by using these sliders, we can come up with our perfect black and white mix for this shot. So if I just play around with one of the sliders, you'll see that the tones of the image change just by moving these sliders. It's the same again if I use the greens. See, all of that control you've got there. Okay, what I'm going to do is try and come up with a mix here using these sliders that's going to be perfect for our foreground shot. So I'm going to start with the reds. I'm going to bring it up there, there's not much going on. But bring it down a bit, about there, it's just darkening down. If we go down to around about minus 40, there, let's just darken that down slightly. With the oranges, I'm just going to try and crank it up a bit. I'm going to increase it a touch. Go back, around about, keep going, plus 30 is looking pretty good there. The yellows, go back, now that's having a sort of undesired effect on our foreground field there, so I'm going to go up, it's lightening that quite a bit, but it's looking good. We can just boost the contrast in that later, so I'm going to go for around about plus 25 there. For the greens, just going to increase that there. It's going too flat, so we go back. Yeah, that's just starting to boost that up nicely. So around about minus 33 there. With aquas, you'll see on some sliders they won't have any effect on the image because there's sort of none of that colour information there. So yeah, that's probably best left alone. With the blues, yeah, it's having a subtle effect just on around those boarded up windows. It's gone. If I go the other way, yeah, let's just darken down just a little bit there. I'm being quite specific there, but I think that's worked quite nicely. I'm going to leave purples and magentas alone because they're not going to affect the rest of the shot. And all I'm going to do now is go back to my basic tab. I've got my mono conversion mix there. That's looking good. So click back to our basic tab, and we can now play around with Photoshop's sort of raw sliders here. If I go to temperature, starting up here, you can toggle through that to control the tone of your image if you wish as well. So all the way through, you can see that has an effect on the image, but I'm going to leave it as it was. I think it was about 5500, but the tint also has an effect on the image. So if I just drag it down that way, you can see it has an effect. And then if I drag it up, I keep on going, or round about, yeah, plus 40 is looking pretty good for that. We've played around with the exposure already. If I see what the recovery slider does, it's doing something to the sky, but we're not concerned with that, so I'm going to leave that on 0. Now let's have a look at fill light. If I just crank that up, let's just lighten that up slightly. So around about 7 there. Blacks. Now I'll probably leave that to the tone curve for that sort of boost in contrast. So I'm going to leave that on 5. Brightness and contrast, again, I'm going to leave that to the tone curve in a moment. Clarity though, I'm going to go all the way from 0 to around about plus 75. If I go back, you can see the image takes on a sort of very soft, dreamy look. But I reckon around about plus 75 there. Okay, so that's my basic tab done. I've just finely tuned the image, so it's given it a bit more punch. And I'm going to finish off by going to the tone curve tab. Okay, I'm going to go for the point tab. And I've just got a very subtle S-curve there. I don't know if you can see that, but all I'm going to do is just increase the severity of that. I'm just going to boost this up here. You can see that's had an impact on the image already. So round about there, and then just going to pull it down as well. So round about there. If I click back, you can see that's boosted up the image nicely. Pretty much all of the detail in the sky has been lost, but don't worry about that. That's going to be our second rule conversion. So I think we're ready to open that up directly into Photoshop. So if I hit open image now, and that will launch into Photoshop. Just wait for that to load a moment. There we go. The best thing to do now with this conversion is to save it. And you save it either as a TIFF, JPEG, or PSD file. I'm going to save it as a TIFF. Just going to save it somewhere easy to get to. So I'm going to save it on my desktop. Hit save. Yeah, just image compression none. Hit OK. I'm going to leave that open now and then come back and open up loire.jng. So if I go down to open, just find my image quickly, and we've got our raw file back again. As you can see, it's maintained that information from the conversion, so this is exactly how we left it last time. And for this second raw conversion, we're going to really just concentrate on getting this sky and the detail back, some real mood and sort of bite to the shot. So again, if this goes dark, I'm not going to worry about that because that was done in my first conversion. So I'm going to start work by going to the exposure slider and knocking that down to, as you can see, it's starting to get that detail back, around about minus 1 point, well, it's probably gone a bit too far, 1.95 there. I'm now going to have a play around with the recovery slider, see if that does anything. Just going to crank that up. You can see, it just darkens that down a bit. So I'm going to go for around about 20 there. I think, yeah, that's just giving it a bit more kick. And then I'm going to leave fill light as it is, but with the blacks, just going to see what that does. Go too far. It's a very subtle change. I think it's worth doing, so I'm going to key in blacks for around about 22. I'm going to leave the temperature and tint alone, and I'm going to go straight onto the HSL grayscale tab there. So I'm going to click on that. It's still got the information from our last adjustment, so we can just fine tune this. Right, let's just see if we can fine tune this a bit more specifically for our sky. Play around with the red slider a bit. Doesn't really have an effect on the image, so I'm going to keep that at minus 40. Let's have a look with oranges. Again, that's more concerned with the foreground. Let's see what the yellows do as well. Again, it's another foreground situation. Greens, yep, same story again. So what was there? Around about minus 33. Aquas, let's see if there's anything there. And again, I can't see any change taking place there. So we're down to our last 3 sliders to play around with our mono conversion here, and let's see what the blues do. Okay, it's normally going to have quite a change with the sky because there's obviously a lot of blue involved in there, so you can see that dramatic change it has there to there. Now, I like it sort of darkened down quite a bit there, so I'm going to go for around about a bit more. Yeah, around about minus 56. Let's see what the purples are going to do now. I knock them back. I'm starting to make the image look a bit flat. Go the other way. It's giving it a bit more boost. So round about plus 34 will do. And finally magentas. Skim through that. Yeah, it's looking better the more I put in. So round about plus 38. Okay, so that's our mono conversion for the sky done. I just finally want to just boost up the contrast. I'm going to go to point again. I'm in the tone curve tab, and then just really see if I can just boost up the shot there. Click back. It's given it a very subtle boost there. Okay, I'm now going to open the image, and we've got our two conversions there. Okay, if I just click back on loire.tiff, and I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to go Control A to select it all, Control C to copy it. I've got my copy now, so I can close that. So Control W. Then if I click back on loire.dng, I'm just going to maximize it so you can see clearly what I'm doing. I'm going to hit Control V to paste it in, and we've pasted in our new layer. If you want to see that, hit F7 on your keyboard. That'll bring up your layers palette, and we should have a background layer and layer 1, which is our foreground exposure. Okay, what we want to do now is reveal the dark sky beneath our layer 1, and we can easily do this with a layer mask. What I'm going to do is go over to the toolbox, select the lasso tool, that one there, and then make a very rough selection round the building, running round, down, and then along. So it's just running around the foreground and up. You see these marching ants running round. And so we've got a smooth transition between the two layers. We want to feather that selection. I'm using CS3, so I'm going to click on Refine Edge. We want to feather for around about 100 pixels here. I'm going to hit OK. If you're using an earlier version of Photoshop, you haven't got Refine Edge. So what you want to do is go to Select, and then from the drop down, select Feather. And you can key in the same amount as we've done there, 100 pixels, and you'll get the same result. Okay, so we've done that. It's just smooth that selection, as you can see. And if I go to the Add Layer Mask icon there, click on it, see we've got our sky revealed beneath. And that's starting to look an almost complete shot. You can see what kind of change that's had on our image. We've got a perfectly exposed foreground and a perfectly exposed sky. So it's really starting to add sort of quite a lot of impact to the shot. Okay, you might want to fine tune your selection. You can see it's probably a little bit lighter along the top here, and you can easily do that by selecting black as your foreground colour. Just switch them around. Black, select a brush, around about 200 pixels. You can adjust that using the left or right square brackets key, and an opacity of around about 40 there. Making sure I've got the layer 1 mask thumbnail selected, that one there. What I'm going to do is just lightly brush in around there. You can see, do it quite quickly. You can see that's just smooth that blend around a bit there. So that's looking good. If you've gone the other way and gone into the field, so like this, your sort of selection is looking like that, all you have to do is hit X on your keyboard, so you've got white as your foreground colour this time. Then all you have to do is just brush away around there the darker areas that you don't want. So it really is a versatile way of blending two images together, and it's non-destructive, so it's really good from that point of view. Okay, I just want to make a couple of localized adjustments. I want to boost the contrast just around this very foreground edge here. So I'm going to click on my layer 1 thumbnail, and with the lasso tool make a rough selection again round here, up and around, run around. I'm going to use Refine Edge again to get my feather. Okay, so you can see that running around there. And what I'm going to do is click on this Create New Filler Adjustment Layer icon, select Levels, and in the pop-up box, if I just bring that into the screen, just drag the left and right arrows inwards until they meet the histogram. As you can see, that's made quite a difference to the shot. That's just boosted that up in the foreground there. So click back, you can see that change. Hit OK, and I think we're almost there. I just want to add a little bit more mood to the sky. That conversion's good, but we can just eke it out a bit more with levels. So I'm going to click back on my background layer, select the rectangular marquee tool, and then just drag it out about 1/3 across the image, round about there. And I'm going to use refine edge again. I'm going to increase the feather, so it's around about 130 pixels, so it's even smoother than that 100 we used before. Hit OK, and then again go to levels, and just so you can see it a bit easier, I just drag that inwards. It's lightening up there. You can see if I click back, that's made a massive difference to the image. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK, just hide that for a moment, and there we go. How to easily carry out a mono split raw conversion in Photoshop. As you can see, the results can be very striking, adding a real punch to the image that would otherwise be lost if it was converted traditionally, or even worse, if it was shot straight from JPEG. It's a great technique that you can apply to your own images, so why not try the split raw conversion yourself? Thanks for watching, I'll see you next month. Cheers!